Oh, and it's now my pleasure to introduce our main speaker, Wesley from Calabasas.
My name is Wesley, and I'm an alcoholic. KC and Samantha, thank you so much for coming. Scott, thank you for inviting me. Tom, thank you for not disagreeing when I showed up. And Amy, thank you for just you. I've dated other women in AA, and it just never worked out. And they always had bottoms that were higher than mine. And then I finally met this woman whose bottom is worse than mine, and it's the only relationship that's worked out. So make sure you guys dig deep when you go for those bottoms, you know? The truth is, as a young adult, I used to fantasize about having a true partner. I didn't have a face, but I had a feeling. I just didn't know her name was Amy. So, why don't we get into this? How many junkies we got here tonight? Needle jamming cowboys, there you go, get your hands up, there we go. Tweakers, I know you're out there. Your house looks like Beirut, but you will spend a nighttime cleaning that TV screen. I love your commitment. You guys, you are changing the face of AA. Give yourself a round of applause. And I get it. Let's get a little connected here. When I speak, I like to wear a coat and tie, and it's just one of my ways of saying thank you. That's it. But it might be a little misleading. I'm fairly white, fairly inkless. I clean up pretty well, so you might be wondering, have I been there? So let's do a snapshot. It's somewhere late 80s. It's a sunny Southern California Saturday. And I'm not outside, I'm inside, naked, sweaty, shooting coke to my penis, and watching fitness videos from the 1980s. So I want you to take in, just breathe in, a little change has happened, you know what I mean? I don't know what the nudity thing is. I guess when I get loaded, I'm very hot. You know, I don't know, clothes fall off, anyhow. So I just want you to know something's happened. To the old timers, thank you so much for what you've done and what you're doing. You opened the doors, you set up the chairs, you made the coffee, but more importantly, you welcomed me in warmly when I wasn't. You welcomed me in kindly when I wasn't. And because of you, you opened the doors into the kind of life I always wanted, and I just didn't know it. So if you've been around, I would thank you for what you're doing and what you've done. If you're new to AA, I am so sorry this has come to this. I really mean it. Like, if you're here and you're new and you're not happy about it, you're right on time. And I get it. Before AA, I was in law enforcement. I was in the back of the squad car most of the time. I didn't have a badge, but I had a role, you know. And so I had acquired this reputation or this arrangement with authority that authority is my enemy. So needless to say, you know where that goes. I like to be in your house when you're not there. Kind of an asset relocation business I had going on. But if you're new and you're not happy about it, I really get it. I remember I was in a rehab, and I remember the first thing that got on my nerves were the logos on the wall. You know, easy does it. You know, one day at a time, and they annoyed me. And I remember a guy came up to me in a meeting. And at this time, I'm in a lockdown rehab, and whether we like it or not, they take us to meetings every night. And this guy said, "Wesley, keep coming back." And I said, "Yeah, they're going to make us do this again tomorrow night, so yeah, I got that." And I was so pissed off and depressed about the fact that I needed to be sober. Like, I didn't realize how much drugs and alcohol meant to me until it was off the table. And so all of a sudden, My mind is here to protect me in the world, so I started putting together this formula for solving this problem. And the formula I came up with is if I don't belong in AA, I don't have to stay sober. So I started focusing on all the differences and how I'm not like you, and it was going great. I was building this case, and I hated all of you very well. It was perfect until I stupidly told an old-timer what I was thinking. His name was Don. I'm probably still Don, but I said to Don, you know, Don, AA is filled with a bunch of uneducated felons. Don was an appellate court judge, which I didn't know at the time. He said, Wesley, weren't you kicked out of school? I said, yeah. And weren't you convicted of burglary and extortion? I said, convicted? Yeah. He said, welcome, kid, you made the cut. And then he just walked away, you know, that kind of old-timer move, you know, their job is done. And I really hated Don for quite a while. But the problem is, every time I went back to the meeting, Don always said it was good to see me, and I just knew it by the look in his eyes that he meant it. I know when you're lying. I've done so much lying, I know when people are lying to me, and he wasn't. And he did it every week, and I started to get this notion that maybe Don was loving me. Maybe it's not an accident I'm in AA. Maybe it's not an accident that the majority of my problems, you know, somehow involve drugs and alcohol. But I fight it, you know, and I go from a rehab to Impact House in Pasadena. This is 1988. Anybody know Impact? Any alumnus here? Oh, there we go. Okay, well, it's at that point, it was a pretty serious place. I was the only guy to 65 that came directly off the street. Everybody else came from Chino, TI, you know, prison basically. And I mean, it was a real place. They'd buzz your hair and make you sweep leaves that aren't there. They don't care. They made me wear a toilet seat around my neck because evidently I was being the pity pot or on the pity pot or something. Anyway, I fought it, and I get kicked out of Impact twice. And then I do what every tough man in AA does. I go to Mom's house. And it's great. She doesn't know anything about Al-Anon, so I can work that for a bit. And I guess, God, I must have worked her for about a year and 3 months. And basically, I spend the next 18 months going to meetings and not staying sober. I had a sponsor the whole time. And I'm getting loaded, I'm getting sober. I'm getting loaded, I'm getting sober. But I'm going to meetings. I've got commitments. And, you know, I remember my sponsor was so kind. He never told me to get willing. He never told me to call me when you got 30 days. He was always kind. In fact, when I called him, he would always act surprised I was alive. And like he was positive. He's like, oh my God, you're alive. That's amazing. How are you? I was like, I'm all right, you know. And then I basically go from my mom's couch to a friend's couch to an abandoned couch in a parking lot in Sherman Oaks. It wasn't long. It was about a week and a half to maybe 2 weeks. I had a bag of clothes, a motorcycle, and a car. I was kind of a well-to-do homeless person. But I remember it hit me all of a sudden. And I didn't have this language, but alcoholism had ruined my eyes. I looked at that motorcycle and that car, and I could only see them in grams and ounces. I no longer saw alcohol as alcohol. I saw it as my friend. I no longer saw people. I only saw property. And I had this terrible foreign feeling that I wasn't going to make it. And I have no idea where that came from. I mean, I have never... When I say I've never afraid of dying, I don't mean to... I mean, trust me, I have a low pain threshold and I scare easy. But my want is always greater than my fear. I remember in the 80s, you go down to 5th and Broadway in downtown LA when you want to cop a bag of junk. And I remember a couple brothers black men to the layman, and they grabbed me and threw me in an alley and put like a 22 in my face and like, give me your money. And I had $40 in my pocket. That means $20 in my arm and $20 in my pocket. And they want to take it from me. And with this gun in my face, I remember saying to them, how about half? I mean, because if you take this from me, then what am I going to do? And they were, very closed-minded. They rejected my negotiation. I mean, they really forced me to go steal from a good friend. It's really it. And I had such a twisted sense of morality. I would steal from the dearest of friends, and I'd notice when you notice your stuff is missing. I'd feel a little bad, and I'd think, I'm going to help you look for it. Well, we're not going to find anything, but that was like checks and balances, that total distortion of morality. Anyway, so that day happens on the couch in that parking lot, and I go to a payphone. Oh, they're like little boxes that you could stand inside. Go Google it, you know what I mean. And I call him, and I say, Bob, I'll do whatever you want. I'll go all the way through these steps, whatever you want. And he started to go through that big book with me. He didn't read it at me, he read it with me. He didn't show me what to do, we found out together, which I think is a totally different experience. He always treated me like we were the same. And that caught me off guard in a very sweet way. The first step, I don't know if I totally believe I was powerless, but unmanageable, I've never done time, but I've done a lot of sleepovers, so that's not a very manageable life. And the second step was weird. I thought, Mother Nature, I can't build a tree, I can't stop the wind, okay. Did the third step as honest as I could, and then we got to the inventory. And good sponsors are watching you even when you don't think they are, and are listening to you even when you don't think they are. And he was, every time I would come up to my inventory, I would not do my inventory, and then I get loaded. I know you're shocked to hear that. And so he said, Wesley, the world has really wronged you. I said, yeah. Now you're getting it. Yeah, that's true. And he said, I think it's time we take an accounting of these people. I never heard anybody talk this way in AA. And he says, I want you to write a list of everything and everybody that they just bothered you. That's all I want. And don't leave anybody out. We have a sentencing to give out. And I was like, oh my God, it's kind of amazing. Like the clouds parted, AA started looking pretty, and he gets the second column. He's like, Wesley, I don't want us to miss the point on this. I want you to write down exactly what they did, because we really want to burn them for all they've done. I was like, oh my God, I love sponsorship. I love Alcoholics Anonymous, And then he gets a third column, again, personal relations, ambition. It was weird, but whatever. Me and Bob, we had a thing going, And then he gets to the fourth column, and he says, what was your part? And I thought, Bob, what do you mean my part? We had the sentencing we were going to give out, and you're flipping it on me, and that's what I'm thinking. What I said to him is, okay. I stopped writing, and I started thinking. These meetings are kind of dull. My job doesn't really pay me what they should. And bit by bit, I was basically planning my next get down. Because nobody is tougher than alcoholism or pain. Like everybody gives up the password at some point. And I guess what I thought at the time was, I don't want to drink because you guys will smell it on me. And I don't want to fix dope because you'll see the tracks. I know, I'll smoke crack because people on crack are totally normal. No one will ever know. So I'm getting it together, a little straight shooter, Brillo for you old schoolers. And some further love to the old timers. You guys are like guardrails. And there was this old timer, Gene T. from Missouri. He had about 25 years. And he was watching me, as he watched many people in our meeting. And he said, he had this Missouri accent. And he said, Wesley, how's that inventory coming? I was like, it's kind of stupid, Gene. I'll get it done. I don't know where I had all this arrogant knowledge about things. And he said, Wesley, you cannot fertilize a field by farting through a fence. He said, you're going to have to get your hands dirty on this one. And the funny thing is, if you get me to laugh or cry, it opens my ears. And that's what he did. He got me to laugh, and suddenly I'm listening. And I guess he said it in the right night, and he spent like an hour with me in that parking lot after the meeting. Guys would come, he sponsored a lot of people. They'd come up. He said, no, I'm talking to Wesley. Call me tomorrow. And at the end of the conversation, I got it. I'm either going to get writing or I'm going to get loaded. I've done it so many times. How can it not happen again? So I went back and I did that fourth column as best as I could. And then I read it to my sponsor under a tree in a park in Pasadena. And the most amazing thing happened. Because I'd never considered my part, I never realized that I had added to so many of my problems and the people that were involved. And it's a crazy thing. It's like I didn't know accountability was the pathway to compassion. And compassion and hatred are too big. They can't share the same room. And the minute I had some compassion for these people I had abused, all that hatred popped out. And there were people on that list that I was committed to hating for the rest of my life. And all of a sudden, for the first time, he was gone. And I can't remember ever having that feeling, especially towards people in my past and my family. And he went through my character defects, and he was kind about it. And then I had such a good feeling from the inventory. I wanted more good feeling. So we got to the amends, and he said, look, just write a list. I'm not saying we're going to do any of them, but let's look at what we're looking at. He made it safe to write down everything. And I wrote down everything as best as I could, and, amends they all have their own tone. My first one, I had blown up a mailbox at the age of 11 with a quarter stick of dynamite. I was kind of a big picture kid, and anyway, I get to this guy's house, and he's very elderly and a little bit senile. I mean, he is totally committed this never happened. And I said, sir, I'm not trying to argue with you. I just want to mend the damage done. And he said, son, never happened. Stay off the glue. And then he slammed the door in my face. I was like, wow, these amends aren't bad at all, No money out of my pocket, kind of funny. But they didn't all quite go like that. I remember I had another one. I'm 3 years sober at this point, and my whole life is different. I've got a legal job, and they know I work there. And I've got a car that I purchased with the money that I made at the legal job. I'm in school. I have a valid driver's license with my name on it. And I'm sober 3 years. I mean, it was amazing. And I, for some reason, I didn't go left when I left work. I went right. And as I drove down the street, I drove right past a liquor store, and it hits me. I had robbed that liquor store with some associates of mine when I was 18. And we were, I don't know, I just, my spine locked up. I don't know why it wasn't on my 8th. It just wasn't. And I got pretty spooked because we were pretty violent in the store. We didn't put our hands on the checkout lady, but we did a lot of violence around her to scare her, and we did. And I went back to Bob, and I said, Bob, I can't do this amends. I mean, I was on pretty heavy probation, get arrested for anything, I'm going away for 3 years, that kind of thing. And I said, Bob, if I do this amends, I'm going to jail. And then he reminded me of me being on that couch. And he reminded me that I'm a slave to drugs and alcohol when I'm not sober. He said, Wesley, if you do this amends, I don't know if you're going back to jail, but if you don't do it, you're going to be well on your way back to slavery. And I didn't want to be a slave anymore. And I went back to my roommate, another sober guy, 3 years. He was very pissed off. He's like, you're not doing this goddamn amends, you kidding me? He said, if it harms others, I'm others. I can't pay the rent alone, and I got it, But then that other sweet thing that happened is I told him, David, I don't want to be a slave again. And that's that sweet moment that only another sober alcoholic gets. And he got it, and I I gave him a spare keys to my car. I said, if I don't come home tonight, give my car to a newcomer. I don't know. And I wore crappy shoes and a crappy jacket, because that's the first thing you lose when you go to jail, at least the jacket. And put together some amount of money. And I show up at the liquor store, and the owner of the liquor store turned out to be a born-again Christian. And we sat there on the sidewalk for 45 minutes and talked about God. And like the mailbox, I didn't see that coming. So just because I can't see where I'm going doesn't mean I'm going in the wrong direction. But this other thing happened. When I left the amends, I felt, lifted. And it dawned on me, that was my last amends. That for the first time in my life, since I was probably 5 years old, I was square with the house. And I got it right then and there. When it comes to amends, there's a big difference between one and none. And I had an amazing experience in Alcoholics Anonymous. I went through the process with a lot of you, and 12 years sober. I've graduated from the University of Southern California in business. I'm running a $10 million company, and I'm getting married to a beautiful woman. And then I said one of the most dangerous things I've ever said out loud to somebody. I said, AA really helped me. It's a very sneaky way of saying I don't need you anymore. God really helped me. It's the same sneakiness. To say I no longer need to seek God, I can play God. I basically got impressed with myself, and I started stepping away from the very life that gave me one. No, Tom, I can't take that commitment. I'm running this big company. Oh, you other guys, no, I can't sponsor you anymore. I'm getting married. And she's going to do things for me that you will not. I don't say that out loud because, I want to look good or avoid looking bad, whichever. And I had a back injury, painkillers, but there was nobody to tell. I didn't have a sponsor to bounce it off of. I didn't have friends in AA to say, what do you think? And all of a sudden, one pill becomes 2, becomes 4, becomes 8, becomes 3.5 years later, I'm doing 640 milligrams of Oxycontin and 50 milligrams of Valium a day, which I'm told is not a little. I was in a lot of trouble. But I had attached my identity to this guy with time. I wasn't going to tell anybody. I would rather die first, it seemed. So I think the universe needed to produce a real moment of clarity, a physical moment of clarity. And mine was August 12th, 2005, at 7:30 in the morning, dressed as I am now. I found myself in the middle of the street in a fist fight with a homeless woman. You should know I wasn't winning that fight. She was a big girl. She was like 6 foot, 250, and the weight class was right. Super quick. No one's getting knocked out, but I'm losing on points for sure. And I remember I shoved her with my left hand on her shoulder, and she sneaks a right hook across my eye. She's falling back, and I was going to be a professional boxer at one point. I was like, what the f***, are you kidding me? And all of a sudden, 2 big guys screech to a halt, jump out of the construction truck, both of them bigger than me, and they're going to put their hands on me. And I don't know the look in my eyes, but I turned to face them. They stopped dead in their tracks, jumped in the truck, locked their doors, and grabbed their cells. And it hits me like a ton of bricks. I'm going back to jail. I am exactly the guy that used to break into your house. I'm exactly the guy that robbed that liquor store. I'm just not doing some of that stuff because I got money, but I'm the same clown. I'm just in different makeup. And homegirls crawling out of the bush looking for round 2, and I was like, I'm out. So I jumped in my car and I drove off, and I contacted the guy that I used to sponsor. He took me to a meeting, West LA Men's Stag on Thursday nights. And I met a man there. And he intuitively knew how confused I was about the 12 years I was sober. Some of you said, never bring it up. Many of you said, oh, it's a part of your time. And it's weird. Like, the big book is very gray, but people in AA can be a little black and white. And I guess he picked up on that. And he kindly suggested that I set it aside for an open mind and a new experience with God, me, these steps in this program. He invited me to put that time on the shelf, like a book on the bookshelf. He said, I don't want you hiding it behind your back, and I don't want it in front of you to get in the way of you finding something new. Just put it on the bookshelf, and later on in your life, you'll be able to refer to some of those chapters because they will be useful. And that felt reasonable. And I asked him to be my sponsor. I asked him to take me through these steps. He said it would be an honor. And then he told me we're going on a journey and we're not coming back. And I have no idea where we're going, but it's got to be better than where I was. But I had this other thing. I remember being happy when I was sober before. I remember going through the steps and it felt good. So it's kind of like I'm willing to jump in the ocean because I know there's an island out there. And he told me to get a brand new big book. He said, we don't want, with no markings, we want a new experience. And he had me go through Bill's story and underline all the parts I related to. He said, I really need you to find yourself in this chapter. And then he had me go through There Is a Solution. And he basically, he had me take all these statements and turn them into personalized questions. Was I just as hopeless as Bill? Have I recovered? Have I solved my drink problem? Basically, he said, if I don't own the problem, I'm never going to buy the solution. And then we got over to more about alcoholism. And he had me go through the chapter, and he had me change each word of drink and drinking to think or thinking. He said, write it all down, and then I want you to read it aloud to yourself, all in one sitting. And I'll never forget reading it aloud to myself. The idea that somehow, someday, he will control and enjoy his thinking is the great obsession of every abnormal thinker. And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing, because you can't do both. I've never controlled anything I enjoyed, and I've never enjoyed anything I controlled. And yet I'm trying to do it all at the same time, all the time. That's no life. And then there's later pieces. Here are some of the methods we tried. Limiting the number of thinks, never thinking alone, never thinking in the morning, thinking only at home, never having it in the house, never thinking during business hours, thinking only at parties, agreeing to resign if ever thinking on the job. I think I got a thinking problem. I'm thinking. And we go further into the piece, and then I remember we got into the whole thing about God. Now, I had a story about God. God let me get loaded. Well, that was my story, right? Not taking any responsibility. I'm sure I'm alone in that. And it was really amazing. He had me find all these capitalized spiritual terms in the book. And he had me personally define them. He said, I don't want you to define them as Bill wrote them and referred to them in this paragraph, and I don't want you to look up a dictionary. He says, you're the dictionary. And I remember, and I had a kind of a prejudice against religion, and so I liked the word him. I was like, oh, it's a patriarchal, male-dominant, Jesus Christ, whatever. I just had a whole story around it. And I literally put that down as my definition. And my sponsor said, well, let's take a look at that. What would you want a hymn to be? I was like, someone I can rely on, someone who's utterly approachable and infinitely protective, a friend and a family member. He goes, why don't you write that down? And all of a sudden, I was redefining all these terms personally to what I want them to be. And at the end of it, he had me put in a composite paragraph, and he said, there's your current conception of God. And I remember he had me doing prayers like, God, please take me to a place inside of me where I can find you. And I remember at one point thinking that I was going to look inside myself and I was going to find this dirty, empty warehouse with nothing of sellable value. And instead, what I found within me is something personal and powerful and portable. I mean, I felt like a guy who was looking around his house for his glasses, and they were on my head the whole time. I just needed to tilt my gaze downward. And I remember having this feeling that this presence has been with me my whole life. Even as a little boy, I remember having a little success, and God within me was so proud. Or I'd get humiliated, and God within me was so sad. That I had this constant companion, and I just didn't know it. And I can lean on that. And then we went into the inventory. And he said, Wesley, I need you to start from the beginning. Go as early as you can and chronologically go all the way through. He said, you're going to live a life examined. And I did that. And all these old ideas were coming up. And I came to believe that my mind is here to protect me in the world, and my ego is here to relate me to the world. The trouble is, my ego is going to do it with the information my mind gives it. So when I come up with women are dangerous, my mind says, great, every time I meet a woman, I'll make you feel like they're dangerous. And I had no idea. And we went through all these old ideas. And I remember at the end of it, I think that my ego has 7 parts. There's my self-esteem, how I see myself in the world, pride, how others see me in the world, ambition, what I want in the world, pocketbook, what I have in the world, personal relations, how friends, family, and coworkers should treat me in the world, sexual relations, how women should be in the world, security, what I need to be okay. And I had ideas like self-esteem, I am unlovable, pride, others should consider my opinion as authority. That was a doozy. Personal relations, my friends should endure my behavior or suffer my wrath. Sexual relations, women should never be noisy or pushy. I know that's not true, but ambition, I want full knowledge of what's coming and everything I want. Security, I need to control others to be okay. Pocketbook, that which I do not hoard as property, I disdain as unworthy of my respect. Basically, move your expletive so I can put my stuff down. And if that's how I'm looking at the world, how possibly can I ever be comfortable in such a world? And he said, we're going to rewrite all this software. And we ended up together with editing and listening to my gut on what really hits me. And I came up with my self-esteem. God feeds my mind and my body, which makes me perfect. Pride, I am safe to approach, and that's why others let me be in their life. Personal relations, my friends are the treasures of my life. Sexual relations, women are perfect expressions of humanity I get to enjoy. Ambition, the more I trust God, the more my fears are replaced with curiosity. Security, I find freedom in letting people be exactly who they are. Pocketbook, my entire life is on loan, and I happily share it with anyone that wants to have fun with me. Now, when I look at the world through that lens, and I let my ego relate me to the world in that way, a whole new world comes into view. Being sober is enjoyable because I'm in a world I want to be in. And it was amazing. I came to find out that my mind is not a bad neighborhood. It just had a crappy school system. You know, it just needed to be retrained. We need a software update, and let's start using this thing the way it's meant to be used. And as an example, it was years ago, I got a speeding ticket for speeding. And anyway, I had this whole story, you know, sometimes the cop doesn't show up, so I'm going to show up and it'll get off. And I had a whole story of how I wasn't speeding, and I even took pictures. It was ridiculous. Anyway, I show up to court, and I remember my sponsor would never ask me what I think. He always asked me, how does it feel? And just before I entered court, I just didn't like how it felt. So I literally, I don't know, I pocketed that pictures or I threw it away or something. Then I went into court. By the way, the cop did show up. He was the only one in this suit. Had all of his evidence, like the last calibration on the radar gun. I mean, I was like, wow, that was a good choice. Anyway, so the judge says, oh, why don't you go talk to each other and share evidence, with each other? And I go to the officer, and I don't have anything, and he shows me all this stuff. And I said, oh, that's impressive. And he had a nice suit on, and his collar was up. And I said, oh, your collar, it's up. Oh, he goes, oh, thanks. And I said, well, that's a nice suit. He goes, I think so, too. And he said, Mr. Idle, they always call you by the last name. If you want traffic school, we can just ask for that. And I said, well, we're both here. Why don't we just see what happens? And he said, fair enough. And I said, it's good to see you. And he said, good to see you too. And it was like a nice surprise for him, Anyway, so he leaves, and I'm sitting there, and I'm the last ticket. So I'm sitting there for hours. So I'm just trying to focus on positive aspects to let the time fly. And I'm thinking to myself, I love how clean the pews are and how much room I have. I love how the room is well lit. I can see everything. The judge is a little elevated, so we can all have eye contact. Just go in a little rage of appreciation. And then right at the very end, before they call my name, this officer comes out on the side, and he whispers to me, Mr. Idle, they're going to change the speed limit on that street. Would you be okay if I dismissed your ticket? And I said, I couldn't be more okay with that. And he said, oh, thank you. I said, you're welcome. It's been about at least 10 years, and they have still not changed the speed limit on that street. Now, before we go too far into manifestation, I really believe what happened was I raised the vibration between he and I, so we just felt good. And when people are feeling good, generosity is more available. That's my take. What's my life like today? Amy and I have been partners for almost 9 years. And she's known the whole time that we were dating. I don't come home and she's like, how'd you get a key to my place? How'd you find my address? It's not like that. It's real. And we have children that say they love me and I haven't given them any money. We have dogs. When I reach to them, they don't flinch or wince. I wave to police officers. I have some friends that are cops. I have a sponsor who also knows he's my sponsor, so that's good. I have some people in my life that teach me how to be a sponsor. That means I got a lot of teachers in my life. And I've heard some interesting things in AA over the years. I think one of the things that really caught me off guard is people would say, oh, I'm living a life beyond my wildest dreams. I'm thinking to myself, this guy doesn't dream very big. I mean, if it's me, I'm in a Prince video, you know what I mean? Decadence, that kind of thing. But when I really think about it, I am living life beyond my wildest dreams because all those years I never dreamt of freedom. I dreamt of things and places and people, but never a feeling that I can go anywhere and be okay. The amends process has put me in a situation where I can walk into any room in the world and I don't have to stare at my shoes because someone might be in there. I have a home group, and I think having a home group means I attend regularly, I have a commitment, and I welcome people who are new to the meeting and or AA. And it's really helpful. I mean, I can tell you that I've definitely had some low points in sobriety. And I remember I had one that occurred a couple of years ago. I was pretty scared financially. And I'd never been somebody that thought about, unaliving myself. But that thought, it was like a drive-by thought, but that car has never been in my neighborhood, so it spooked me, woke me up in the middle of the night. And it was one of those nights where it's like too dark to read, too late to call anybody kind of a thing. And I remember my sponsor telling me that I'm not here to serve my mind is here to serve me. So I need to coach it. And staring out the window, I started to focus on the positive aspects of my life. I thought about my partner. I thought about our kids. I thought about our home. I thought about our dogs. And it was like widening circles of appreciation. And then all of a sudden, I just fell back to sleep easily. And I was amazed. But another year goes by, and that thought drove by again. And I remember, instead of thinking my mind is bad, I said to my mind, thank you so much for never giving up. You're always trying to figure something out and help me out. I really appreciate your stamina and your commitment. We're not going to do that, but I love that you love me enough to come up with something. And it's been really helpful to stay involved in Alcoholics Anonymous. It's been really helpful to talk to people when they want to talk, and even check in with people that they're in trouble. Just say, hey, how are you? Or I was just thinking of you. Don't ask them how they are. That's a hard question. Just say, what are you doing? It's an easier question to answer. If you're new tonight, I want to welcome you to the house of Alcoholics Anonymous. I want to invite you to find a sponsor. It's as if we're welcoming you out of the rain. And in the front of our house, there's exactly 12 steps. Find that sponsor to lead you up and through those steps. And it'll lead you to a doorway. And it takes you into a huge dining room table. And we have a seat for you at the King's table. And what we're offering every night of the week in Alcoholics Anonymous is freedom from a manic mind and a battered body. I hope you find what you're looking for. Because whether you know it or not, we love you. And whether you believe it or not, I don't even know you and I love you. And there's not a damn thing you can do about it. Thank you.
Okay, can we get a big whoop whoop for the speaker? Woo! Thank you.